Hello, how are you today? This is Olivia.K. I'm here to level up with you. So welcome to my Level Up show. Today we're going to be covering information about what I am bringing to you on a weekly basis. You'll be able to find me every Wednesday here and on my YouTube channel on Wednesday, like I said, at 3 p.m. So our purpose to come here is to grow together one show at a time. So as your host, a little bit about me is I am a member of the John Maxwell leadership team. Some of you may know what that means. John Maxwell is an awesome leader and he brings value all over the world. And our main focus is to value all people, to love all people, and to bring life and add something positive one day at a time to each person that we encounter. So our purpose here, as the show started out saying, is that I want to go just a little bit deeper as I explain that we take responsibility for our own joy and for our own peace. Today, or in this show, and maybe today, you can laugh as I make some mistakes because this is my first show that we're doing together. I happen to love radio, and I'm going to tell you how I ended up here today. Today is a great snowstorm out there, so I made it through the snowy weather. But you may find when you come and join me weekly that we may have a cry together, but the most important thing is that we grow together and that we also equip ourselves today for a better tomorrow, for a greater tomorrow. So I thank you for listening today and joining me. I feel extremely blessed for being here, and I thank Louise for the opportunity of me being here and sharing with you just a little bit about myself in this first show. So one thing about me is I happen to be an author, and I am the author of the book titled Making Jesus Your Habit. This happens to be my faith, but what I love to do is I love to help people grow in their faith, in spirituality, whatever your choice may be. I'm also a grateful wife and a mom of 3 beautiful children. I love to help people, as I said, grow in their faith and grow in their spirituality. So if that's you, I have something here for everyone. As long as you want to better yourself and take control of your own life, then you're in the right place. So as part of the John Maxwell leadership team, I will tell you that I'm a certified teacher and coach and speaker. That's what that means. So I've spent a great deal of time learning how to lead myself the best way that I can to help others lead themselves well so that we can create a better world. I'm also passionate about neuroscience. I do hold a certificate of transformational coaching, so I lead people and help them transform their life one coaching session at a time. My roots in self-development started in the early ages of right around the age of 11 to 13, something like that. I happen to come in a family that is from alcoholism. And I learned at a very early age that we can make the best out of any situation. And I was introduced to a program, and it's called Al-Anon. It's a 12-step program. So I learned from this program to equip myself and realize, like, the very first step says that we are powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. Because when you live with an alcoholic in the family, your life is a little bit chaotic at times. It's unpredictable, but in the chaos, in the unpredictability that was in my home, I learned how to have my own sense of power, and it was creating value for myself, and so that I didn't have to be overcome by other people's problems. So if somebody chose to drink, then that was their choice, but it didn't have to affect my daily life, of peace. It didn't have to take me off of my stability just because of somebody else's choices. At the age of 19 years old, I had a vision, You know, I was in a one-bedroom studio apartment, recently graduated from high school. I was going to hair school to become a cosmetologist because I have a natural knack of being creative. And one of my friend's moms spoken to me and said to me one day when I was in high school, you know, you should go to school to become a hairstylist. So I took her up on that because school in itself was not my thing. But I was in this one bedroom studio apartment. I had a kitchen, I had a full bath, and just this nice size bedroom slash living room at the same time. I was sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall, and I had my notebook with me. And at the time, I was journaling. And as I was journaling, I had a vision. And this vision included me standing on top of a mountain. And what was I doing on this mountain? I was speaking. I was giving some kind of a message. I didn't know what I was saying. All I knew is people were there listening. And there was a lot of people. They were below the mountain. And for some reason, I was just standing on this mountain. In my whole life, I was wondering, what did that mean? What was I speaking? What were these people so curious about? Well, in my 20s, in my mid-20s, I had a friend, a very close friend, a person who was in my life for a long time. He ended up taking his life, and I was at the hair salon and having just a normal day, and I get this phone call, and as I pick up the phone and I heard on the other end, this is Rob's brother, John. And when I heard his voice, I knew what he was going to say next. He delivered the news that my friend of many years had taken his life. And what I did in that moment is I excused myself from work that day. And I did that anybody might do, is I went to process what I just heard. So I spent the next 24 hours in bed processing that my friend had taken his life. In that moment, at the end of those 24 hours, I knew that I was going to have to stand up in that funeral, and I was going to have to give Rob some honor. I was going to have to give a message and tell these people about what he meant to me in honor of his life. I knew that that was the right thing to do. So that was the beginning of me standing up and speaking in front of people. Actually, funerals are a passion of mine. I think it's important to honor that person while they were here and also speak to the people who are in that moment of grief. Grief is not something that people talk about very often, and I'm going to tell you that my book that I wrote was birthed out of the loss of my dad. It was after I had overcome a couple years of deep sorrow and deep grief. And but I still didn't know what that mountain was all about because I was thinking about that mountain. And I knew that speaking at a funeral was not what that meant, that earlier vision that I had of standing on top of that mountain and speaking to these people. So fast forward a few more years, and I was about 30 years old. And I had been going through some trying times, and I decided to take a yoga class. And I took that yoga class, and I realized that, you know what, this is very healing for me. And it's something that I really love doing. I love moving my body while allowing my emotions to move through my body. I spent a lot of time crying on my mat. I loved it so much that I decided to become a teacher. So I went through all of the training, and I became a certified yoga teacher. And I found myself teaching yoga. I know that while I was teaching yoga, something about it resonated with people because they told me how good the classes were. You know, they would say how they meant what the class meant to them and how it helped them process what they were going through too. So I had a moment of time where I would do that. And then, you know, fast forward many years later, and my dad was sick. And we knew that he didn't have that much time. He was diagnosed with a couple kinds of cancers, one in the lungs, and there was other cancer that he had as well. But my dad didn't want to do treatment, and we had to honor what he wanted to do. And here I found myself grieving the loss of my dad before he actually passed away. I really find myself grieving a lot. But the one thing that I was grieving so much for is my dad had lived a very hard life here on earth, and I felt like he suffered a lot. His journey was a lot different than mine. I was into self-discovery and self-healing, and I was really into doing all of the things to make my life great, where my dad's story was he drowned himself in alcohol and behaviors and habits that were not serving him well but hurting him. Hence is why he eventually ended up with cancer, and he had this chronic illness all the time, horrible pain. And what do you do for somebody who is in that situation? You know, you want to help them so much, but their choices are not helping themselves. What do? Well, I found myself praying a lot, because that is my go-to, and that's my faith is it includes prayer. And I had this fear that was so strong inside of me. I didn't want my father to go to hell, because that was my belief system and my spirituality is if you're Christian and you don't receive Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, well, you go to the pits of hell. And I felt like my dad's life here was already the pits of hell. And I really honestly did not want that for him. So I fasted and I prayed and I asked the Lord, what can I do? My dad is sick. I know he doesn't have much time, Lord. And I went to my Father in heaven, and I spoke to him, and he answered me, and he gave me a message. He said, I will help your dad when he lets me help him. When he receives me as his father, then I can help him. So I took the Father's answer. I sat down at the table with my dad. I remember it as clear as day. He was on one side of the table and I was on the other. I said, Dad, I have to tell you this, because I felt like my dad was hanging on for dear life. He was afraid to die. And I said, I want to give you this message of hope. I went to the Lord and I asked him, what's going to happen to my dad? I shared that message with my dad, and I told him what the Lord had said to me. He said to me, I shared with my dad that the Father that is in heaven said, when your dad allows me to be in his life, then I'll be able to help him. So I ended that time with my dad, and it wasn't too much longer that I received a phone call from my mom. And she said to me, this is it. You know, I think your dad this is it. You know, he's at his final day now. And I said, Mom, it's okay. Don't worry. We've been here before. I know it seems that way, but it's just one of those times. He's going to get past this. And my mom said to me, no. And she calls me Bunny. That's my nickname. She said, Bunny, no, this is it. I can tell this is it. He's non-responsive. She told me the story of how he was sitting at that table, and that when she asked him to stand up to go downstairs, which was their normal routine, he wasn't able to get to his feet. He wasn't able to respond to that request. So she had to call a neighbor, and they had to work together to get my dad downstairs where his lazy boy was and his comfortable chair. But we knew that a day like this would come, and my mom was prepared, and she had a hospital bed in the family room. And he wasn't able to get in his chair. She changed his clothes, and she knew that this must be the end. She had gotten him into the hospital bed. And so the next time I saw my dad after that table conversation that I had about coming to the Lord and welcoming him into his heart, the next time I saw my dad, He was in that hospital bed. And I share this with you because I'm getting to how I got here today. So as I went, I went my way, and I went to the house thinking this is just another time that he's going to pull through. Well, that wasn't the case. In 7 days from that moment, from that day, my dad was no longer with us. But I had the opportunity to see my dad in the greatest peace I had ever seen him in. He laid in that hospital bed, somewhat responsive, somewhat not responsive. And I spent the next 7 days with both my mom and my dad in the same room, something I'd never done in my life. And in that time, that was so trying, and I would say one of the most difficult moments, because you're battling with letting go and knowing that he's not going to suffer anymore, but then you're like, you don't want that person to leave forever. And that's what my mom and I had experienced in those 7 days of just saying goodbye to my dad. And so I was there. I had told my dad my request. When I sat down at that table that day, not knowing that was the last conversation I was going to have with him, I told him my request was, Dad, I want to sit next to you. I want to be holding your hand when you go. And he had thought that would be too traumatic. He said, I don't want you to have nightmares. I don't think that's a great idea. And I said, no, that's my wish. And I'll tell you, then that's what happened. I was able to sit next to my dad and my mom on one side and me on the other, my dad in that hospital bed. And I had great peace knowing that in those 7 days, I saw my dad at peace. I saw him relaxed. I also believe that he was very aware was what was being said that day. And I'll tell you why. When a minister had come to pray over my dad, that was the one and only time that he opened his eyes in those 7 days. He looked up at that minister and he said, as clear as day, I'm sorry I can't visit with you today. He then closed his eyes and then went back to what seemed non-responsive. But it was very clear that my dad could hear us. So I'm going to fast forward to what happened at the funeral. So I, stood up and I gave my little goodbye to my dad. But it wasn't until that next Tuesday. So we buried my dad on Saturday. And the following Tuesday, I was hit with an overcoming amount of grief. But with that grief, I also found my purpose. I had heard somebody preach, because this is my belief, and I heard Billy Graham, the late Billy Graham, I would say. He actually passed away just a few days after my dad. And when I heard him sharing the love that is available to all of us, I knew in that very moment that was what I was called to do. And with my dad's passing, I was given a gift of knowing, listen, this is what your purpose is. You're going to talk to people, and on that mountain or wherever you're going to talk from, you're going to let them know that they are loved and that they don't have to do this life alone. And even though this world here feels like chaos and hell, there is a greater place, and it's called heaven. And that's available for all of us. But that's when I realized that I have this voice, and I wanted to make sure that I used it for good. And I hope that this blesses you as I share this message with you. I've got some more great news to tell you. But since then, since all of this, I've had funerals that I've been passionate about speaking at. I love TV, that was fine, but not my thing. I like to do podcasts, but the one love that I did find is when I did a radio show a couple years ago. I was like, I love the radio. And here I am today. Maybe this perhaps is my mountain, to be able to speak to many people and share goodwill and share love and grow together. There's a woman that I really respect. She's from Michigan, just like I am. Her name is Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins, created this book, and it's called, I'm holding this book right now for those of you on radio that can't see, but the radio is called the book title to this is called Let Them, and it's a theory that we have to let go and let people do what they want to do. So this just kind of circles around to my very first time that I started developing myself into being a better person. But in Mel Robbins' book, The Let Them Theory, she talks about how to protect your time, your energy, and to remain focused on what matters to you most. And she and I share that same love. Another love of mine is the Bible. Of course, some of you listening, maybe that's your thing and maybe it's not. But the Bible is, to me, a book of life lessons, and it's a complete roadmap to living a life, not just an average life, but the best life that we can live on this earth. It is filled with purpose, and it is filled with lots of passion. So that's how I got here, because I'm passionate about loving all people. And it's also a pathway to heaven and eternal life. So this is my John Maxwell Leadership Bible that I happen to bring with me and have here in the studio today. So I am super grateful. I mean, I don't know how to express the gratitude that I have for being here today. I'm truly humbled to be able to speak and to be able to have this opportunity to share with you and my friend Louise that gave me this opportunity to learn together, to grow together, 1 week at a time, to share quotes like this. And I believe that communication is the vehicle to transformation. I'll say that one time. Louise loves to speak. He's a great talker, and so am I. And I mean, I love to speak. We're a certain kind of breed, those of us who love to talk, but communication is super important. You can either do great things with it or you can do horrible things with it. But the one thing that I love is that communication, it truly is the vehicle to transformation. So my prayer for you is that you transform your life one day at a time. And I have some homework for you today, and every week I'll have some homework. This homework is quite simple. It's to speak life into others. Whoever's path you cross today. I don't care if it's a person in the grocery store, maybe at the coffee shop. It could be your coworkers. I want you to show up differently today. I really want to challenge you to speak life. It could be as simple as a silent speech, which is just a smile, smiling, giving somebody your eye contact, looking at them, letting them know that you see them. These are really simple things that can make this world a better place. And I know that you're capable of doing that. Something as simple as just a smile. You can do that, right? And, a compliment, when you see it, just give it. Whether it's somebody's shirt, whether it's you like their hair. Women love compliments. I'm always careful about complimenting men, but you can still do it. Nice shoes, something like that. Anything, whatever comes to your mind. You want it to come from your heart. It may seem weird at first, but I know that you can do it. It may seem awkward at first, but what I want to tell you is we know that any growth is uncomfortable. You got to take that first step. You might feel awkward. You might feel like somebody might look at you in a weird way, but you need to take yourself out of the weirdness and out of the awkwardness and make that person more important than you in that moment. Give them a little bit of life. Give them a little bit of love. Give them a little bit of light, which is different than the darkness. So as we know, we're in a world that is full of a lot of darkness. And I'm here in the show to bring light and to grow together. So each week, if you want to join me, remember my time slot, which is every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want more information about me, you can visit my website, and you would go to www.buildingchristianroots.com. www.buildingchristianroots.com. buildingchristianroots.com. If you want to send me a text and ask me a question or anything like that, you're welcome to text or leave a message. My work number is 248-770-0309. Until next time, be sure to do your homework. Speak life into the person that's before you. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time. Much love, Olivia.K.